Commander Marcus Cole had been a prisoner for 11 months. He lived in a beautiful room with soft beds and strange alien food, but it was still a prison. The door was always locked. The windows showed a city he could never visit. He was alone, forgotten, and very far from Earth. The Volanthi Empire had captured his ship near the edge of known space. Humanity's first real diplomatic mission had ended before it even started. 20 crew members were taken to research centers. Scientists wanted to study the strange creatures from the small blue planet. Marcus was different. He was the captain, the leader, so they kept him in the Imperial Palace on Volanthos Prime. The Volanthi were not like humans at all. They stood 7 feet tall with silver skin that shined like metal in the light. Their eyes were gold and seemed to look right through you. They moved with grace and power, like predators who knew they were at the top of the food chain. For 2,000 years, they had conquered star system after star system. 43 civilizations had fallen under their rule. Their secret was simple but terrifying. The Volanthi could smell emotions. Every living creature released tiny chemical signals called pheromones. Humans could barely detect them at all, but the Volanthi had evolved to read these signals perfectly. They could smell fear. They could smell lies. They could smell when someone was planning to attack or planning to run away. No species could hide their true feelings from a Volanthi. This made them impossible to defeat. How could you win a war against an enemy who knew your battle plans before you attacked? How could you negotiate with someone who knew exactly how desperate you were? The Volanthi had built their entire civilization on this one advantage. It had made them the masters of the galaxy. Marcus had learned all of this during his months of captivity. Different officials had come to interview him, study him, ask him questions about Earth and humanity. They treated him like a mildly interesting animal. Not cruel, but not respectful either. Humans were just another primitive species to them. Short lives, weak bodies, basic technology, nothing special at all. He had almost gotten used to being ignored then. Empress Virilith came home. Marcus heard about her return from the guards who brought his meals. The Empress had been away for 2 years, leading military campaigns in a distant part of the galaxy. Some rebel species had tried to break free from the Empire. Virilith had personally commanded the fleet that crushed them. She was returning as a conquering hero. The entire palace buzzed with excitement. Servants rushed through the halls. Decorations appeared everywhere. Marcus watched from his window as ships filled the sky, each one carrying important visitors who wanted to welcome the Empress home. He did not expect her to visit him. Why would she? He was nobody. A curiosity from a backwater planet. The ruler of 43 star systems had better things to do, but 3 days after her return, his door opened and a dozen royal guards marched into his room. "You will come with us," the lead guard said. "The Empress wishes to inspect the diplomatic holdings." Marcus stood up straight and smoothed his worn uniform. It was the same one he had been wearing when they captured him. He had washed it many times, but it was starting to fall apart. Still, he was a commander of the Earth fleet, and he would act like one. They led him through corridors of white stone and golden metal. Other prisoners from other species stood in their own rooms, waiting for inspection. The Volanthi had collected representatives from many worlds. Marcus saw creatures with scales, creatures with too many eyes, creatures that seemed to be made of living crystal. All of them stood at attention. All of them looked afraid. Marcus was afraid too. He would be stupid not to be afraid. But he had been afraid for 11 months now, and he was tired of it. Whatever happened today would happen. He could not control it. So he stood straight, kept his face calm, and waited. The Empress entered the wing like a storm entering a quiet room. She was taller than the other Volanthi, nearly 8 feet, and her silver skin had patterns of deep purple that marked her royal blood. Her golden eyes were cold and sharp. She wore armor that looked like it was made from liquid mercury. Shifting and flowing with her movements, she was, Marcus realized, the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever seen. Virilith moved down the line of prisoners quickly. She barely glanced at each one. A quick look, a small nod to her advisors, and she moved on. Whatever she was smelling from these creatures did not interest her. They were afraid. They were defeated. They were exactly what she expected them to be. Then she reached Marcus. He stood at attention, eyes forward, breathing steady. He had practiced this moment in his mind many times. Show no weakness. Represent humanity with dignity. Whatever she did, he would face it like a soldier. The Empress stopped in front of him. He felt her golden eyes examining him. He waited for her to move on like she had with all the others. She did not move on, instead. She inhaled deeply, and something changed. Marcus saw it happen. Her cold expression cracked. Her eyes went wide. The purple patterns on her silver skin began to pulse with colors he had never seen before on any Valenthe. Blues and greens and golds swirled across her face like aurora lights dancing in a night sky. Her guards noticed immediately. They reached for their weapons, thinking she was under attack. Some kind of chemical weapon, maybe. Some kind of trap. But Virilith raised one trembling hand, and they all froze. She was still staring at Marcus. Still breathing deeply. Her whole body was shaking now, like she was standing in a freezing wind that only she could feel. "What? ... she whispered. Her voice was different from her commanders and soldiers. It was soft and uncertain, like a child seeing snow for the first time. "What are you?" Marcus did not know what to say. He did not understand what was happening. "I am Commander Marcus Cole," he said carefully. "Earth Fleet, United Nations Space Command." The Empress shook her head slowly. No, that is not what I asked. What are you? What is this ... this?" She pressed a hand against her chest, right over her heart. "What are you doing to me?" "I am not doing anything, Your Majesty. I am just standing here," Virilith laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of someone whose entire understanding of the universe had just shattered into a million pieces. "Just standing there," she repeated. "Just standing there, and you are the most. I cannot." She turned to her advisors. Her voice became sharp again, commanding, "Clear this wing. Everyone out now." The guards moved instantly. Other prisoners were rushed away. Advisors and servants scattered like leaves in a wind. Within seconds, Marcus was alone with the Empress of the Valenthe Empire. She stood before him, still trembling, still staring. "In 200 years," she said quietly, "nothing in this galaxy has surprised me. I have conquered armies. I have broken empires. I have read the hearts of 1,000 species and found them all wanting." She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see the swirling colors still dancing across her skin, and then you appear. A human. From a planet we considered barely worth noticing. She inhaled again, and her eyes fluttered closed. "You smell like a symphony," she breathed. "You smell like colors that have no names. You smell like..." She opened her eyes. Everything. All at once? How is this possible? Marcus Cole, prisoner and forgotten ambassador, looked into the golden eyes of the most powerful being in 43 star systems. "I have no idea," he said honestly. "But I think we should find out." For the first time, the Empress smiled. It transformed her face from something terrifying into something almost gentle. "Yes," she agreed. "I think we should." And in that moment, humanity's place in the galaxy changed forever. Empress Virilith locked herself in her private chambers. 3 days after meeting the human, her advisors were terrified. The Empress had never done anything like this before. She was famous for her control, her discipline, her perfect calm in every situation. Other rulers panicked during wars or natural disasters. Virilith simply made decisions and moved forward. Nothing touched her. Nothing shook her until now. Messages piled up outside her door. Military commanders needed orders. Trade delegations needed audiences. The entire machinery of a 43-system empire needed its ruler. But Virilith would not come out. She would not even respond to calls. Inside her chambers, she sat in darkness and tried to understand what had happened to her. She could still smell him. That was the worst part. The human had been in her presence for maybe 10 minutes, but his scent was burned into her memory like a brand. Every time she closed her eyes, she experienced it again. Layer after layer of emotion, woven together into something so complex and beautiful that her mind could not fully process it. For 200 years, she had read other species, like simple books, one emotion at a time: fear, anger, submission, greed. Each feeling was clear and separate, easy to identify and easy to use. The Volanthi had built their power on this ability. They could always tell what their enemies and allies were really feeling. But the human was different. The human was impossible. He had been afraid when she approached him. She could smell that clearly. But his fear was not alone. It was wrapped in something else, something like duty or honor. And underneath that was dark humor, the kind that soldiers developed after seeing too many battles. And woven through all of it was genuine curiosity about her, about the Volanthi, about everything. No species had ever been curious about Virolith before. They feared her. They respected her power. Some of them hated her with burning passion. But none of them had ever simply wondered about her, wanted to understand her, seen her as something interesting rather than something dangerous. It was such a small thing, and it had broken something open inside her that she did not know existed. On the fourth day, she finally opened her doors and summoned her chief imperial scientist. Dr. Keth was old, even by Volanthi standards. His silver skin had faded to gray, and he walked slowly, but his mind was still sharp. And he had spent 3 centuries studying the biology of every species the Empire had encountered. If anyone could explain what had happened, it was him. "Run every test," Virolith commanded. "I want to know what the human is. I want to know why he affects me this way. I want answers." Keth bowed and went to work. It took his team 2 weeks to complete their analysis. When he finally returned to the Empress with his results, his hands were shaking. "Your radiance," he said, his voice unsteady. "I do not know how to explain this. Try." The old scientist took a deep breath. "When we first captured the humans, we tested their pheromone output. The results showed very weak signals, barely detectable. We assumed this meant humans had primitive emotional chemistry. We were wrong." He activated a holographic display. 2 patterns appeared in the air. One was simple, a single wave of color. The other was incredibly complex, thousands of waves layered on top of each other. "This is what we thought human pheromone signatures looked like." He pointed to the simple pattern. "This is what they actually look like." He pointed to the complex one. Virolith stared at the tangled mass of signals. "How did we miss this?" "Because it was too complex for our standard equipment to read. Imagine someone who has only ever seen individual musical notes suddenly hearing a full orchestra. Our instruments could detect that something was there, but they could not process it. They simplified it down to almost nothing." The Empress stood and walked to the display. She reached out and touched the swirling pattern. "What does it mean?" Keth hesitated. "Your radiance? Humans do not feel one emotion at a time. They feel dozens. Hundreds, maybe. All at once, all the time. Fear mixed with hope, mixed with love, mixed with anger, mixed with curiosity. Mixed with ... everything. Their emotional lives are more complex than any species we have ever encountered. That is impossible. Their brains are smaller than ours. Their lifespans are tiny. How can they feel more than we do?" "I do not know," Keth admitted. "Perhaps because their lives are short, they evolved to feel everything more intensely. Perhaps their isolation on their single planet forced them to develop greater emotional depth to survive their own social conflicts. Perhaps it is simply random chance. But the results are clear." Pulled up more data. Brain scans. Chemical analyses. Mathematical models. When a Volanthi is exposed to human pheromone signatures at close range, our neural pathways experience stimulation unlike anything else in the galaxy. It is not just pleasant, your radiance. It is ... double quotes. He searched for the right word. Revelatory. Like discovering a new primary color. Like hearing music for the first time. Virolith was quiet for a long moment. "And the effects on our people." "On me?" Keth looked down. "The stimulation triggers the production of several pleasure chemicals in Volanthide brains. Once exposed, the brain begins to crave that stimulation again. The longer the exposure, the stronger the craving becomes. You are telling me that humans are addictive. Yes, your radiance. Biochemically, genuinely addictive. And withdrawal symptoms have already begun appearing in the guards and advisors who were present during your meeting with the human commander. The Empress closed her eyes. She could feel it herself now that she knew what to look for. A constant pull toward the human, a desire to be in his presence again, to breathe in that incredible complexity, to feel something other than the emotional flatness of every other species. Does he know? She asked. Does the human understand what he does to us? I do not believe so. Humans cannot consciously control their pheromone output. They do not even seem aware of it. To them, their emotional state is simply ... normal. They have no idea they are broadcasting symphonies while every other species in the galaxy broadcasts single notes. Virilith opened her eyes. Her mind was racing now, seeing the implications spreading out before her like cracks in ice. If this becomes known, she said slowly, every enemy we have ever made will want humans for themselves. They will see them as weapons against us. Tools to destabilize our negotiators, our commanders, our rulers. Yes, your radiance. And our own people will seek them out. They will become obsessed with finding humans, with keeping humans close, with experiencing this. This drug that nature has created, that is likely your radiance. How many humans exist? Keth checked his data. According to information from the captured ship, approximately 12 billion. 8 billion on their homeworld, 4 billion on colony planets, 12 billion humans. 12 billion sources of the most complex emotional experience the galaxy had ever known. Virilith understood immediately that this changed everything. Humanity was no longer a minor species from a forgotten corner of space. Humanity was now the most valuable resource in the known universe, and she had their commander locked in a comfortable prison in her own palace. Bring him to me, she ordered. The human. Bring him now. Keith bowed. Of course, your radiance. But may I ask what you intend to do? Virilith looked at the swirling pattern of human emotion still floating in the air before her. So beautiful. So complex. So dangerous. I am going to do something I have not done in 200 years, she said quietly. I am going to have an honest conversation. Because for the first time in her long life, Empress Virilith of the Valanthi Empire was completely uncertain about what came next. And strangely, terrifyingly, wonderfully, she found that she did not mind. The human had made her feel curiosity, real curiosity, and she wanted more. 6 months later, the galaxy was falling apart. Marcus Cole stood at the window of his new quarters watching ships arrive at the Imperial Palace. There were more every day now. Diplomats, scientists, military commanders, all of them desperate for answers. All of them terrified of what those answers might mean. He was no longer a prisoner. The Empress had changed his status after their first real conversation. Now he was the human cultural liaison, whatever that meant. He had better rooms, better food, and freedom to walk the palace grounds. He also had guards following him everywhere, though. Virilith said they were for his protection. Marcus knew the truth. They were there to make sure no one else got too close to him, because the secret had spread. It started with the servants. Some of them had been present during that first meeting between Marcus and the Empress. They had breathed the same air, caught traces of his pheromone signature, experienced just a tiny taste of what the Empress had felt, and they had talked. Servants always talked. Within a week, rumors were spreading through the palace. Within a month, they had reached the outer provinces. Within 3 months, the entire galaxy knew that humans did something strange to Valanthi, biology. The conquered species saw opportunity. For 2,000 years, they had been helpless against the Valanthi ability to read emotions. Now they knew there was a weakness. Humans could disrupt that ability, could overwhelm Valanthi's senses, could maybe even be used as weapons. Rebel movements that had been crushed decades ago started reforming. Underground networks began searching for information about Earth, about humans, about how to contact this mysterious species that could bring the Empire to its knees. Some of them even sent secret messages to Earth itself, though Marcus doubted any had gotten through the Valanthi. communication blocks. But the real crisis was not the external threats. The real crisis was happening inside the Empire itself. Volanthi, who had been exposed to humans, could not stop thinking about them. They described it like a hunger that could not be satisfied. Regular emotional input from other species felt flat and empty now. Colors seemed duller. Music seemed quieter. Life itself seemed less vivid. The Imperial Court was especially affected. Dozens of high-ranking advisors and commanders had been present at various meetings with Marcus over the past months. Every single one of them was now showing symptoms of what the medical officers were calling emotional dependency syndrome. They could not concentrate when
Marcus was not nearby.
They made mistakes in their work. They snapped at colleagues and family members. Some of them had started finding excuses to visit the wing where Marcus lived, just to catch a breath of air that might carry traces of his scent. The Empress herself was not immune. Marcus had noticed changes in her behavior over the months. She found reasons to summon him to meetings that did not really need his presence. She took walks in the gardens at the same time he did. She asked him questions about Earth, about human history, about human art and music, and she listened to his answers with an intensity that was almost frightening. Today, she had called him to a private meeting in her war room. When he arrived, he found her staring at a holographic map of the galaxy, her silver skin shifting through troubled colors. "We have a problem," she said without looking at him. "Just one?" A ghost of a smile crossed her face. She had grown used to his human humor over the months. Sometimes she even seemed to enjoy it. "The Kathrani Collective has made contact with Earth." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The Kathrani were one of the first species the Volanthi had conquered, nearly 2,000 years ago. They had never stopped hating their rulers. How? One of their spy ships slipped through our border patrols. We do not know exactly what messages they sent, but we intercepted fragments. They told your people that the Volanthi Empire considers humanity a threat. They offered alliance against us. Earth does not have the military power to fight you. The Kathrani offered to provide weapons and technology in exchange for human ... volunteers. Virilith finally turned to face him. Her golden eyes were troubled. "They want to use your people against us. Flood our worlds with humans? Disrupt our leaders, our commanders, our entire civilization." Marcus was quiet for a moment. He thought about Earth, about his family back home, about the billions of people who had no idea what was happening in the wider galaxy. "What will you do?" he asked. "I do not know," Virilith admitted. "My advisors want me to destroy Earth, eliminate the threat before it can be used against us." She saw the horror on his face and raised a hand. "I am not going to do that. But you must understand the pressure I am facing. My own court is compromised. My own commanders cannot think clearly anymore. And every day, more of my people are exposed to reports about humans, and more of them become desperate to experience what I experienced." "This is not our fault," Marcus said quietly. "We did not ask to be this way. We did not even know we were different." "I know." Virilith walked toward him, stopping just a few feet away. This close, he could see the color shifting beneath her silver skin, could see the slight tremor in her hands. "And that is what makes this so complicated. You are not enemies. You are not weapons. You are simply ... human. And your very existence is tearing my empire apart." She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin, smooth like polished metal. "I have read minds for 200 years, she whispered. "I have known the deepest fears and desires of 1,000 species. But I have never understood anyone the way I want to understand you. Your emotions are so complex, so layered, that every moment with you feels like discovering new territory. It is terrifying, and it is wonderful. And I do not know how to stop wanting more." Marcus stood very still. He was aware of the guards outside, of the political chaos surrounding them, of the galaxy-spanning crisis that his species had accidentally created. But in this moment, all he could see was the ancient, powerful, frightened being standing before him. "Maybe you are not supposed to stop," he said carefully. "Maybe this is not a problem to be solved. Maybe it is a change to be accepted. Change? Virilith laughed bitterly. My empire was built on control, on predictability, on knowing exactly what everyone around me was feeling and thinking. Humans destroy all of that. You make everything uncertain. Uncertainty is not always bad. Sometimes it leads to better things than you could have planned. The Empress studied him for a long moment. He could not read her expressions the way she could read his, but he thought he saw something shifting behind her golden eyes. Something that might have been hope. My people are falling apart, she said finally. The Kathrani are plotting against us. Half the conquered species smell blood in the water. And I am standing here wanting nothing more than to keep talking to you, to keep breathing in your impossible emotions, to keep feeling things I never knew I could feel. She shook her head. How is this going to end, Marcus Cole? He thought about the question seriously before answering. I think that depends on what you want more, he said. Do you want to save your empire the way it was? Or do you want to build something new? What would something new look like? Marcus smiled. I have absolutely no idea. But I know that back on Earth, we have a saying. When everything is falling apart, sometimes that is just the universe making room for something better. Virilith stared at him. Then slowly she began to laugh. It was not the bitter laugh from before. It was something warmer, something almost hopeful. You are a very strange species, she said. We get that a lot. I think I am going to need your help, she said. If we are going to survive this, if we are going to build something new, I cannot do it alone. I need someone who can see possibilities I cannot see. Someone whose mind works differently from everyone in my empire. Are you asking me to be your advisor? I am asking you to be my partner. She paused. Not in the romantic sense. In the strategic sense, although he let the word hang in the air, Marcus felt his heart beating faster. The most powerful being in 43 star systems had just admitted that she needed him, that she wanted him, that she saw him as an equal rather than a curiosity. Okay, he said. Let us save your empire together, and if we cannot save it, he grinned, then we build something better. For the first time, Empress Virilith looked at the chaos surrounding her empire and did not feel despair. She felt something she had not experienced in centuries. She felt excited about the future. Marcus Cole had been a soldier long before he became a diplomat. He understood how battles worked, how enemies thought, how to find advantage in desperate situations. But nothing in his military training had prepared him for this. He was sitting in the Empress's private communication chamber, looking at a holographic screen that showed the faces of Earth's leaders. The Secretary General of the United Nations sat in the center, flanked by military commanders and scientific advisors. They all looked shocked. It had taken 3 weeks to set up this call. The Valanthi had blocked all communication between Earth and the rest of the galaxy for years. Opening a secure channel required the Empress's personal authorization and technology that could punch through multiple layers of Imperial security. But Virilith had done it. She had given Marcus a direct line to his homeworld, trusting him completely. It was the biggest risk either of them had ever taken. Let me understand this correctly, Secretary General Chen said slowly. The Valanthi Empire, which has conquered 43 star systems and could crush Earth's military in approximately 6 hours, is experiencing some kind of emotional crisis because of us. Not some kind of crisis, Marcus replied. A fundamental disruption of their entire civilization. Human emotional chemistry is so complex that it overwhelms their pheromone detection systems. When Valanthi are exposed to us, they experience feelings they have never felt before, and those feelings are addictive. The Secretary General leaned back in her chair. And you are telling me this because we have a choice to make. Right now, every faction in the galaxy sees humanity as either a weapon or a threat. The Valanthi are terrified we will be used against them. The conquered species want to use us to destroy the Empire. Everyone is thinking about war. What other option is there? Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment everything would change. Partnership, he said. Real, genuine partnership between humans and Valanthi. Not conquest. Not control. Something new. Screen erupted in noise. Military commanders demanded to know if this was some kind of trick. Scientists asked technical questions about Valanthi biology. Politicians argued about the implications for Earth's sovereignty. Secretary General Chen raised her hand, and the room went quiet. "Commander Cole," she said carefully, "you have been a prisoner for over a year. How do we know you have not been compromised? How do we know this is not some elaborate manipulation?" It was a fair question. Marcus had thought about it himself many times over the past months. "You cannot know for certain," he admitted. "But let me tell you what I do know. I have spent the last year watching the most powerful empire in the galaxy come apart at the seams, because they encountered something they could not control. The Empress herself, a being who has ruled for 2 centuries without ever showing weakness, has admitted to me that she does not know what to do, that she needs help." He paused to let that sink in.
Us.
Aerith has 2 options. Option 1. We try to fight. We ally with rebel species. We let them use us as weapons against the Velanthi. We start a war that will kill billions on both sides. Maybe we win. Maybe we break the empire. But what happens then? Do you think the conquered species will treat us any better? They will want to control us too. Everyone will want to control the species that can manipulate Velanthi emotions. And option 2? Chen asked. We make ourselves too valuable to fight. We become partners, not tools. The Velanthi need us, but we can make them need us on our terms. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Their medicine could cure every disease on Earth. Their ships could give us access to the entire galaxy. And in exchange, we give them something they cannot find anywhere else. Emotional depth, creativity, a new way of experiencing the universe. General Morrison, the head of Earth's military, shook his head. You are asking us to trust the species that kidnapped our diplomats and studied us like lab rats. I am asking you to think strategically, Marcus replied. The Velanthi did not know what we were. They treated us like every other species they encountered because they could not detect what made us special. Now they know, and they are scared. Scared people make mistakes. Scared people start wars. But scared people can also change if you give them a reason to. What makes you think they will honor any agreement? Because the Empress cannot lie to me about her feelings. That is the irony of this whole situation. She can smell every emotion I have, but I can also smell when she is being genuine. And she is genuinely afraid of losing access to humans. She is genuinely curious about our species. She is genuinely looking for a different path. Marcus leaned forward. I have spent months with these beings. I have watched them struggle with emotions they never knew existed. I have seen hardened warriors break down crying because they experienced human joy for the first time. I have watched scientists throw away 2,000 years of assumptions because human complexity proved everything they believed was wrong. The Velanthi are not monsters. They are beings who evolved a certain way, built a civilization around that evolution, and are now discovering that the universe is bigger and stranger than they ever imagined. Secretary General Chen was quiet for a long moment. What exactly would this partnership look like? Marcus felt hope rising in his chest. She was listening. Really listening. Humans would live among the Velanthi, and Velanthi would live among us. Not as rulers and subjects, but as complementary species. We help them experience emotional depth. They share their technology and resources. Together, we create something that neither species could create alone, and the other conquered species, they would be offered a choice. Stay in the reformed empire, or leave peacefully. No more forced control. No more reading emotions to manipulate people. A new system based on genuine cooperation. General Morrison laughed without humor. You are describing a complete transformation of galactic civilization. Marcus agreed. I am. And you believe this is actually possible? Marcus thought about Virolith, about the way she had changed over the months, about the vulnerability she had shown him, the trust she had given him, the hope he had seen growing in her ancient eyes. 6 months ago, the Empress of the Velanthi Empire was the most feared being in 43 star systems. She had not shown weakness to anyone in 200 years. Then she met one human, and her entire world changed. If she can transform that much, that quickly, then yes. I believe anything is possible. The call lasted for another 4 hours. There were arguments, negotiations, demands, and compromises. By the end, nothing was certain. But a framework was beginning to take shape when the screen finally went dark. Marcus sat alone in the chamber for a long time. His body was exhausted, but his mind was racing. The door opened behind him, and Virolith entered. "I was watching," she said quietly. "You did not tell them everything." "No, you did not tell them about us. About how much time we have spent together. About the connection that has grown between us." Marcus turned to face her. "That part is not relevant to the political agreement, is it not?" She walked toward him slowly. "You argued for partnership between our species, but I wonder if you were also arguing for something more personal." He did not answer immediately. The truth was complicated. Over the past months, he had developed feelings for Virolith that went beyond diplomacy or strategy. She was brilliant and powerful and ancient, but she was also lonely in ways that he recognized. She had spent 2 centuries surrounded by people who feared her, and she had never known what it felt like to simply be understood. He understood her, and she understood him. "Maybe I was," he finally said. "Is that a problem?" Virolith smiled. It was still strange seeing emotion on her silver face, but it was becoming familiar. Almost comfortable. "No," she said. "I think it makes the partnership stronger. 2 species learning to work together is good. 2 individuals who genuinely care about each other, proving it can work. That is better." She sat down beside him. "Your Secretary General agreed to send a diplomatic mission. 20 humans. The first official contact between our species, and you are not afraid of what will happen when 20 humans start affecting your court." "I am terrified," Virolith admitted. "But you've taught me something these past months. You taught me that fear does not have to mean retreat. Sometimes fear means you are finally moving toward something worth having." Marcus reached out and took her hand. Her silver fingers were cool against his warm skin. "Then let us be afraid together," he said, "and let us build something worth having." Outside the chamber windows, the stars burned in the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, Earth was preparing to take its first real steps into the galactic community. Somewhere out there, 12 billion humans were about to discover that they were far more important than they had ever imagined. And in this quiet room, a human soldier and an alien empress sat together, planning a future that neither of their species had ever dreamed of. It was going to be complicated. It was going to be difficult. It was going to change everything. Marcus could not wait. The day the galaxy changed forever began with rain. It was not real rain, of course. Valanthos Prime was a dry world, its water carefully controlled and recycled through massive underground systems. But for the signing ceremony, the Imperial engineers had created weather. Soft droplets fell from manufactured clouds above the palace gardens, catching the light of the 3 suns and creating rainbows that arched over the assembled crowds. Virolith had ordered the rain. She said it was because humans found it beautiful. She said it would make the Earth delegation feel welcome. But Marcus suspected the truth was simpler. After months of experiencing human emotions, the Empress had developed a taste for beauty that went beyond Valanthe traditions. She was changing. They were all changing. The ceremony took place on the grand steps of the Imperial Palace, a staircase made of white stone that stretched half a mile from the garden grounds to the palace entrance. For 2,000 years, conquered species had walked up these steps to kneel before Valanthe rulers. Today, humans would walk up them as equals. Marcus stood beside Virolith at the top of the steps. Below them, representatives from all 43 conquered systems had gathered. Thousands of beings from dozens of species, all watching to see what would happen next. The Earth delegation appeared at the bottom of the steps. 20 humans in formal dress, led by Secretary General Chen herself. She had insisted on coming in person. When Marcus had asked why, she had smiled and said that some moments required witnesses as the humans began to climb. Something remarkable happened. The Valanthe guards, the servants, the officials who lined the steps, all of them began to lean closer. Their silver skin rippled with colors. Their golden eyes went wide. Even from this distance, even with the rain creating interference, They could sense the approaching humans. 20 humans walking together created an emotional signal stronger than anything most Volanthi had ever experienced. It washed over the crowd like a wave of warm water. Fear and hope and determination and curiosity and pride and nervousness, all woven together into something so beautiful that several Volanthi fell to their knees. Virolith gripped Marcus's arm. He could see her fighting to maintain her composure. "Breathe," he whispered. "Just breathe." "I have been breathing for 300 years, she whispered back. "It has never felt like this before." The Earth delegation reached the top of the steps. Secretary General Chen approached the Empress and bowed slightly. Not the deep bow of a conquered subject. The respectful nod of an equal. "Your Radiance," she said. "Earth thanks you for this invitation," Secretary General Virolith replied. Her voice was steady, though Marcus could see the strain in her posture. "Humanity does not require thanks for accepting an invitation we should have offered long ago." It was a remarkable statement. For the leader of the Volanthi Empire to admit wrongdoing, to acknowledge that humanity should have been treated differently from the start, was unprecedented. Marcus saw shock ripple through the watching crowds. The ceremony proceeded. Documents were presented. Terms were read aloud. The symbiosis accords were dense with legal language. But the core was simple. Humanity and the Volanthi Empire would become partners. Not allies in the traditional sense. Something deeper and stranger. Complementary species, the documents called it. To peoples who made each other better by their very existence, human communities would be established on Volanthi worlds. They would live among the silver-skinned beings, sharing their emotional complexity, enriching Volanthi culture and society. In return, humans would receive access to Volanthi technology, medicine, and interstellar infrastructure. Earth would advance centuries in a generation. But the Accords went further. They offered the conquered species a choice. Remain in the Empire under the new partnership model, with genuine representation and rights, or negotiate peaceful independence. No more forced compliance. No more emotional manipulation. When Virolith announced this provision, silence fell over the crowd. For 2,000 years, no species had been offered freedom. Now it was being handed to them without condition. A delegate from the Kathrani Collective. The species that had tried to use humans as weapons against the Empire. Stepped forward. "Your Radiance," he said slowly. "Why should we believe this is genuine? Why should we trust that you will honor these agreements?" It was Marcus who answered. "Should not trust based on words," he said. "Trust based on what you can see. Look at your Empress. Look at how she has changed in the past year. Look at the colors in her skin, the openness in her expression, the uncertainty she no longer tries to hide." He stepped forward to address the crowd directly. "I was a prisoner here for almost a year before the Empress and I had our first real conversation. I expected her to be cold, calculating, exactly what I had heard about Volanthi rulers. Instead, I found someone who had been alone for 200 years. Someone who had never known what it felt like to be genuinely understood. Someone who was terrified and fascinated by the things humans made her feel." He turned to look at Virolith. She was watching him with those golden eyes, and he could see everything she was feeling written across her. Silver skin, pride, fear, hope, love. Yes, love. Neither of them had spoken the word aloud yet, but they both knew it was there. "The Volanthi built their empire on reading emotions," Marcus continued. "They could tell when other species were afraid, angry, deceptive, but they could not experience the depth of feeling that humans carry with us every moment of every day. Meeting us showed them that they were missing something. Something precious." He looked back at the crowd. "You can choose to see this as weakness to exploit, or you can see it as an opportunity. For 2,000 years, the Volanthi ruled through control. Now they are offering to rule through partnership. Not because they are being forced to, because they have learned that partnership creates something better than control ever could." The Kathrani delegate was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. "We will stay," he said. "For now, to see if this new empire is what you claim." One by one, other delegations made similar announcements. Some chose to remain. Some chose to negotiate independence. But none chose war. None chose to walk away in anger. After the formal ceremony ended, there was a celebration. Food and music and dancing, styles from 100 different worlds mixing together in the palace gardens. Humans moved through the crowd, talking with Valanthi and other species, sharing stories and asking questions. Wherever they went, colors bloomed on Valanthi's skin. Laughter echoed through spaces that had been silent for centuries. Beings who had never shown emotion in public found themselves crying with joy or wonder or simple relief. Marcus found Virulith standing alone on a balcony overlooking the gardens. The rain had stopped, and the 3 suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. "You did it," he said, stepping up beside her. "We did it," she corrected. "I would never have found this path without you. You would have found something. You are too smart and too stubborn to let your empire collapse." Virulith laughed softly. "Perhaps, but I would have found a path of control. More rules. Stronger enforcement. I would have made my people stronger by making them smaller." She turned to face him. "You showed me there was another way. A way that makes everyone bigger." She reached out and took his hand. Her silver fingers interlaced with his. "My advisors are already asking questions," she said. "About us. About what we mean to each other." "What do you tell them?" "The truth. That I have become deeply attached to a human who makes me feel things I never knew were possible. That I cannot imagine ruling this empire without him beside me. That I am against all logic and tradition, completely in love with you." Marcus felt his heart pounding. He had known, of course. He had felt the same thing growing for months, but hearing her say it, this ancient and powerful being admitting love for a human, was something else entirely. "The galaxy is going to have opinions about that," he said. "The galaxy can adapt. I intend to spend the next several centuries showing everyone that humans and Valanthi, together, are stronger than either species alone." Starting with us, she stepped closer to him. "My grandmother used to say that the best relationships are the ones where both people make each other better," Marcus said softly. "I think she would have approved of you. I wish I could have met her. She would have told you that you think too much and feel too little. Then she would have made you eat 3 portions of her cooking and told you that you were too skinny." Virulith smiled. "She sounds wonderful. She also would have told you not to waste time when you know what you want." Wise woman. The Empress of 43 star systems leaned down and pressed her forehead against his. "I know what I want, Marcus Cole. I want you. I want humanity. I want this new future we are building together. I want to spend the rest of my life discovering all the colors you can show me. That might take a while. I have time." Behind them, the celebration continued. Humans and Valanthi and a dozen other species were learning to exist together, to see each other as partners instead of threats. It would not be easy. There would be problems and misunderstandings and moments of doubt, but as Marcus stood with his Empress on that balcony, watching the first stars appear in the alien sky, he knew that something incredible had begun. Humanity had reached for the stars expecting to find enemies. Instead, they had found something better. They had found family, and the galaxy would never be the same.